This book has been silently censored, quietly disappeared from online platforms and sellers, its author seemingly hidden behind a pseudonym. This book alleges that nuclear weapons are a hoax. I'm David Thrussell, and this is the Forbidden Book Club.
Frightened people are obedient. In times of war and crisis, the population instinctively gravitates towards authority, seeking the security that the warm bosom of the state supposedly offers. Through repeated trauma, might we become psychologically and emotionally bonded to the state? Indeed, are we bludgeoned into compliance by an endless, deliberate matrix of threats? Does the machinery of fear ever rest?
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Published in 2017, Death Object, Exploding the Nuclear Weapons Hoax, fundamentally questions the machinery of fear.
Profoundly controversial, Death Object was ostensibly written by Japanese mathematician Akio Nakatani. The book argues that the entire post-World War II Cold War paradigm of imminent nuclear annihilation is false.
And that according to the laws of physics and mathematics, nuclear weapons simply cannot work.
By the hysteria of Cold War propaganda, the atom-bombed cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki should still be radioactive wastelands, and yet, today, they clearly are not. The author marshals many arguments around nuclear physics and further circumstantial evidence that fundamentally challenge our consensus reality and the very fabric of our political, military, and social structure.
Death Object reads like it was written by an American-born speaker. It has no translation artifacts and features an American style of gallows humor.
A cleverly chosen pseudonym, Akio Nakatani is not an uncommon name in Japan. A simple internet search will reveal an Akio Nakatani who holds patents for numerous electronic inventions and whose biography might be a rough fit. But he is not the author of Death Object.
Suspicion has fallen upon a professor of applied mathematics at an Ivy League US university.
At times, Death Object brushes dangerously close to US national security laws, and we respect the real author's desire for anonymity.
Psychopaths run the world. If nuclear weapons exist, they will be used. Sooner, more likely than later. All a nation's cabal of military and government officials need is some confidence that they, and a few buddies and lovers, have at least a roach's chance of survival, and they will bring it. As for non-state actors, they may not care about self-preservation, in which case, none of the elaborately game theory, mutual assured destruction, The Prisoner's Dilemma, and the like, is worth spit. But hang on a second. Is mass destruction the only way to determine the credibility of nuclear weapons? Is there no rational resting place between fear-porn foreplay and the money shot that ends the world? Here we are, 70-plus years on from Hiroshima in 1945. Mankind hasn't changed. Up to our ears in superweapons, you'd think we'd be nuking each other left and right by now, yet it hasn't come to pass. Why?
Throughout the Korean War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Vietnam War, and the Berlin Wall standoff, the world supposedly stood on the precipice of nuclear Armageddon.
And yet, somehow, we survived. Was it luck, or was it illusion?
I'm going to assume you have at least a minimal understanding of basic physics and chemistry. Therefore, you know the Rutherford Bohr model of the atom. But popular illustrations are wildly out of scale. In fact, the atom is about 100,000 times bigger than the nucleus. So, if the nucleus were the size of a baseball, the outer shell would be miles of empty space distant from it.
Death Object argues that if an atom bomb were the rough equivalent of a pinball machine,
the balls are simply too small and the board simply too vast to ever predictably achieve explosive combustion. And if it could, it still wouldn't be enough to breach the necessary containment of the bomb shell and produce catastrophic fission.
ultimately, it's a question of maths.
And for enough atoms to collide in a confined space and in a confined time to reach a critical mass and therefore explosive nuclear fission, the numbers just don't add up. Death Object therefore insists that all films and photographs of nuclear tests and nuclear explosions are fakes, produced with mass quantities of TNT, incendiaries, models, and other special effects, and most probably produced by the mysterious facility known as Lookout Mountain Laboratory. Located on Wonderland Avenue, Laurel Canyon in the Hollywood Hills, Lookout Mountain operated under strict secrecy from the 1940s until, reportedly, 1969. The very existence of the facility was classified until the 1990s, and it is alleged that at least 95% of the thousands of films produced there remain classified even today. Working with seconded Hollywood stars and technicians, Lookout Mountain operated as a branch of the US Air Force to produce propaganda films, training films, documentaries, and new technologies like stereo and 3D. Death Object argues that nuclear weapons films and photographs contain clear evidence of model work and other optical illusions like rear projection and sets. Shadows are often inconsistent, clouds often irrational, and simple darkroom effects like overexposure and contrast changes are often present in nuclear photography, the book asserts.
Death Object also asserts
that with today's advanced computing power, it is entirely possible, working with open source schematics and calculations of the Hiroshima bomb, to build or reverse engineer a fully functional computer model to either prove or disprove the atom bomb hypothesis. Indeed, the author hints that he has done just that, but cannot release it directly to the public because of the threat of strict national security laws. Technical, scientific and operational details of nuclear weapons technology are born secret. That is, they are classified from the very moment they are created. And the punishment for divulging nuclear secrets can be long prison sentences and other severe sanctions. The author argues that at some point during the Manhattan Project, high-level scientists would have realized that the bomb was simply not feasible, and politically, strategically and morally committed, the decision would have been made to stage a mass firebombing of Hiroshima and present it to the world as nuclear annihilation. Any such details would be classified beyond top secret, perhaps even beyond the clearance of presidents and other national leaders.
On the 13th of February 1945, the ancient German city of Dresden was firebombed with massive amounts of high explosives and incendiaries.
Was the horrific extermination of Dresden a dress rehearsal for the grand kabuki of Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Perhaps, ironically, German scientists were the first to discover nuclear fission in 1938, but essentially abandoned the nuclear bomb project in the 1940s as not viable.
Famed physicist and wartime head of the German nuclear weapons program, Werner Heisenberg,
upon being told of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, declared, "I don't believe a word of the whole thing."
Little Boy, the bomb supposedly dropped on Hiroshima, was the first atomic weapon ever deployed in a battle space. It was to be the first explosive nuclear chain reaction ever occurring in a deployed weapon, up to that moment, a purely theoretical idea. Target and bomb components left the U.S. on July 16, 1945, aboard the USS Indianapolis bound for Japan. Little Boy had begun its combat deployment before there had ever been a fission explosion on planet Earth. It had no integration testing, relied on physics that had never been demonstrated, and was shipped halfway around the world with God knows what crucial temperature, moisture, altitude, and manhandling fluctuations. There are two possible situations where no test is run: when you know it works and when you know it doesn't. In Hiroshima, the damage patterns of the supposed atomic attacks were nearly identical to previously observed conventional bombing effects.
According to official accounts, everything within 2 miles of ground zero should have been instantly vaporized.
But in Hiroshima, concrete buildings, trees, bridges, telephone poles and telephone lines remained standing. Supposedly, people were flash vaporized, leaving only ghostly shadows behind. And yet, in some cases, the wooden walls that apparently captured those shadows are strangely undamaged. Thousands upon thousands of innocent people died horrific deaths in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but so did the people of Tokyo and 64 other firebombed Japanese cities.
Alexander D. Seversky was a US test pilot, author, air power expert, and observer soon after the blasts. And he noted,
Hiroshima from the air looked exactly like all the other burnt-out cities I had observed. Only one of the city's 20 bridges was down. Hiroshima's clusters of modern buildings in the downtown section stood upright. I looked for the bald spot, where presumably everything had been vaporized in the twinkling of an eye. It wasn't there or anywhere else. I could find no traces of unusual phenomena.
Death Object references Air Force documents that assert that around 200 B-29 bombers, armed with conventional high explosives, incendiaries, photo flash bombs and dirty bombs, could have achieved the deadly effects seen at Hiroshima.
It is important to note that Death Object takes no position on the separate issues of nuclear-generated power and radiation. Was the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki a ghoulish magician's trick, a mesmeric sleight of hand, where massive firebombing was passed off as nuclear Armageddon?
In the world of fiction, several authors have suggested a nuclear weapons hoax. Philip K. Dick's 1964 novel, The Penultimate Truth, features a coward and terrified population trapped in deep underground bunkers as nuclear war rages above on the barren surface. Except that it doesn't. The surface of the Earth, a new Garden of Eden, now exists solely for the pleasure of a cunning elite. Likewise, in the 1970 novel The Jesus Factor, nuclear weapons are a gigantic fraud, a mass illusion to maintain the political status quo. Do these fictions echo an unspeakable truth? Since 1945, there have reportedly been hundreds of near-miss nuclear weapons accidents that could, but never did, result in cataclysmic destruction. What are the odds that countless bombs have apparently been accidentally dropped, damaged and misfired without ever going nuclear?
A recent book, Hiroshima Revisited, reinforces Death Object.
The book posits that the supposed radiation poisoning displayed by Hiroshima and Nagasaki victims was, in fact, more likely to be the effects of mass quantities of napalm and mustard gas, and that the whole grisly shadow play may have been performed with the aim of driving a fearful population into one world government.
A blast, the release of deadly radioactive rays, and in a matter of seconds, downtown New York would be a mass of ruins.
Is the entire nuclear weapons paradigm an enormous hoax, an occult spell cast over a battered, sleepwalking population? Or is the threat all too real, a madman's bluff of mutually assured destruction? And do we ultimately really want to find out?
Banned, censored, suppressed, forgotten. These are the words of heretics, eccentrics, and visionaries. Expand your mind, broaden your horizons. Join us next time in the Forbidden Book Club.